Long ago, I wasn't content to merely report for duty as a laborer, rock, truck driver, or any number of other occupations. Staying out of our way is illogical. You must prevail. Known for their roles in the popular Discovery Channel series Gold Rush, Tony and Mike Beets are now serving life sentences for their crimes. The mining community and reality TV fans worldwide have been taken aback by this shocking news. A packed courtroom in the Yukon Territory was the scene of yesterday's shocking decision. Many consider this to be the largest criminal case to ever arise from reality TV mining, and it has finally come to a close. The charges against the father and son were extensive and included environmental violations, claim jumping, false gold reporting, and a criminal conspiracy that prosecutors described as the largest in modern mining history. They were found guilty of multiple counts. Their colorful language, aggressive mining techniques, and strong Dutch accents made them famous. An old TV show depicted the famed Beets family business, Paradise Hill, as a massive gold mine. The police have now described it as the epicenter of a criminal empire built on deception and destruction. 3 years ago, a competitor miner named Parker Schnabel, who had been trained by Tony Beets, informed the authorities that he believed some peculiar mining techniques he had observed on adjacent claims were incorrect, initiating the investigation that ultimately led to the Beets' downfall. Once inspectors discovered evidence of repeated environmental code violations on a scale never seen before in the Klondike, what started as routine questions became much bigger problems. What we found went far beyond taking shortcuts to make more money, lead investigator Catherine White said, exclaiming, "There was evidence that people had been attempting for some time to circumvent nearly all of the region's environmental protection laws. The damage this caused will take decades to fix, according to experts." As Judge Robert Tamman handed down the unprecedented punishment, the chamber fell into a hushed stillness. His tone was solemn and authoritative. "The court has given serious thought to the compelling evidence and the unanimous verdict reached by the jury on all counts. This court has no choice but to impose the maximum sentence permissible by law on you in light of the gravity and pattern of your crimes as well as your total absence of contrition. You have been handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole." The 75-year-old boss, Tony Beets, who is infamous for his Viking appearance and profanity in his orders, maintained his composure during the reading of the sentence. The sentencing of his 35-year-old son, Mike, finally shattered his usually confident demeanor. Realizing what lay ahead, Mike, who had been increasingly responsible for the day-to-day operations of the family mining company in recent seasons, appeared visibly distressed. Many famous faces from the Gold Rush books and TV shows gave testimony throughout the 11 weeks of the trial. It was unexpected to have famous people testify as key witnesses in a criminal case with such high stakes. The most damning evidence was provided by former Beets team members. According to them, when the cameras weren't rolling, they were instructed to do actions that violated environmental regulations. Prosecutors referred to Tony and Mike's actions during what they called the dual mining strategy, legal operations for TV filming, and significantly more harmful unregulated activities that occurred off camera, as important testimony from Rick Ness, another well-known miner from the show, who had worked closely with the Beets family and Parker Schnabel. "Tony always said there was real mining," Ness said, his expression betraying his discomfort as he glanced across the hall at his former colleagues. "He made it clear that certain things should never be filmed, and he made sure we knew what would happen if we talked about them with anyone outside the crew." Among the most shocking remarks was made by Minnie Beets, Tony's longtime secretary and wife of more than 40 years. The decision by Minnie to testify against her husband and son in return for immunity shocked everyone. She would provide extensive financial records that demonstrated the systematic underreporting of gold production and the intricate plots to sell this unreported gold on the black market. There seems to be tension in the Beets family as a result of Minnie's decision to cooperate with the authorities. Although they are shocked and distressed by the evidence against their father and brother, Monica and Bianca Beets have spoken out in support of their mother. The two ladies remained in court to observe the ruling, but they opted to avoid interviews with reporters and instead used a private exit to leave. During 3 days of testimony, Parker Schnabel, whose initial report initiated the investigation, described what he observed while assisting with Nikonetha's claims adjacent to the Beets company. The mining whiz, now 30 years old, was a regular on the show when he was a kid learning the trade from his grandpa. He frequently mentioned the times he witnessed paranormal activity on Beets' property while he was a kid. Tony was someone I admired. He was my mentor when I was starting out, Schnabel said in court, maintaining constant eye contact with his former instructor. Over time, though, I noticed things that weren't brought about by lawful mining. For instance, at 3 in the morning, murky, dirt-filled water washed over my property. When the water tested positive for mercury and other chemicals not typically used in court proceedings, I felt compelled to report it. Many members of the Discovery Channel crew and producers were present to discuss what they had witnessed during filming, further complicating the already tense courtroom atmosphere. Some of the directors claimed ignorance about any wrongdoing, while others admitted to having suspicions but refrained from reporting them out of concern for the show's potential future ratings. During an interview for the show's after-show segments, executive producer Christo Doyle said that the crew had stringent regulations in place to protect the environment while filming, but that they did concede that there were long periods when they weren't able to see much of the action. Gold Rush films about 15% of the real mining season, Doyle said in response to the opposing side's questioning. What happens the other 85% of the time is completely out of our control. Our faith in the integrity and lawfulness of our mining operators was crucial. There are now valid worries regarding the regulation of reality TV shows due to this case. Some worry that the lucrative nature of popular shows might lead to an atmosphere where lawlessness is normalized. In a statement, Discovery Channel expressed their shock at the decision and clarified that they were unaware of any wrongdoing. Veteran Fred Lewis, who came on later in the run of the show, discussed a disturbing conversation he had with Tony Beets at an unusual get-together of the cast for fun. After a few drinks, Tony began boasting that he was immune to the ridiculous environmental regulations since he was clever enough to find ways to circumvent them. Since that was his character on the show, I assumed he was merely putting on an act. How terrible things were, I had no clue. The prosecution relied heavily on environmental evidence, including satellite images showing the destruction of protected wetlands and the illegal diversion of rivers in areas mined by the Beets operation, as well as before and after photos of these areas. Some areas had concentrations of heavy metals and mercury that were 200 times higher than the legal limit, according to environmental experts. As a character witness, the defense presented Todd Hoffman, who had appeared on the show in previous seasons before moving on to other endeavors. This was a horrible plan, because the prosecution seized the opportunity to grill Hoffman on the controversial mining methods that had garnered attention throughout his appearances on the show. To which Hoffman responded, "Yes, Tony and I did have our disagreements. According to him, my operation was sloppy and wasted time. In hindsight, I can't help but wonder if it was due to the fact that I was striving to adhere to the rules and he wasn't. When it came out that the Beets operation had secretly mined gold from land they didn't own, crossing over into other miners' claims, the case became even more shocking. Gold Rush, Dave Turan's Lost Mine, is Dave Turan's new show, and he mentioned that while working on a claim a few years ago, he noticed some strange digging patterns. At the time, I couldn't prove anything, but the maths wasn't adding up, he pointed out. We looked in places where there ought to have been recoverable gold but couldn't find any, as if someone had been there before. Everything was crystal clear to me now. The defense team, headed by renowned attorney Jonathan Blackwood, attempted to portray the prosecution as selectively prosecuting certain cases out of jealousy over the Beets family's prosperity and Tony's prominent television stardom. Environmental test results, financial records, and statements from former employees who participated in the illegal activities were meticulously presented by the authorities, but this strategy failed. Blackwood concluded his remarks by stating, "My client is a colorful character who plays a role for television. When prosecutors played secretly recorded conversations between Tony and Mike Beets, in which they discussed specific ways to hide environmental violations from inspectors, this defense plan collapsed. There is a misunderstanding between the TV personality Tony Beets and the businessman Tony Beets, according to the prosecution. The authorities in this case have gone too far, swayed by the dramatic TV mining depictions rather than the reality of the industry. Unsettling footage showed Tony instructing his son on when to illicitly use mercury so that it would happen while inspectors were absent. Some jurors chose to discuss their work after the decision without revealing their identities. The evidence was simply overwhelming," remarked a woman on the jury who was 40 years old. In order to disentangle the TV persona from the real business practices, the jury made an effort to maintain an open mind regarding the case. However, the evidence we gathered pointed to a regular pattern of criminal behavior. The intentionality of the infractions shocked me as someone knowledgeable about mining operations. "This wasn't about misunderstanding regulations or making mistakes," added another juror. "In order to maximize profits, the Beets operation relied on violating environmental laws. Their impact on the Yukon's water was immeasurable. In the Yukon mining town, where the show's gold rush tourism has been a boon to the economy, the case has sent shockwaves. The decision left local business owners with mixed emotions. Although they acknowledged the seriousness of the crimes, their main concern was the potential impact on the region's reputation. Tony Beets put the Klondike back on the map for a lot of people," says Marion Clark, a longtime Dawson City resident. "Despite the fact that the show increased tourism and media attention to our region, the destruction of our natural habitat is intolerable. While mining has always been an integral part of our culture, environmentally conscious mining practices should be the standard. Prison life begins for Tony and Mike Beets, but the fate of their family's substantial mining claims and associated equipment remains an open question. The fate of the assets will be determined by a distinct civil case, according to the prosecution. A significant portion of them will likely be sold to fund the cleanup efforts in the impacted regions. This discovery presents a first for Discovery Channel and one of their most watched programs. With its remaining mining operations, the network has announced that it will continue airing Gold Rush. Nevertheless, industry insiders are uncertain as to whether the show can maintain its popularity in the absence of the Beets family. When asked about their thoughts outside of court, many cast members shared the sentiments expressed by Chris DeMeat, a well-liked former carpenter who now runs a gold room and has appeared on the show with various mining teams. "Today is a sad day for everybody. Everything is a lose-lose situation. The environment has taken a hit, people have died, and the integrity of a whole sector of the economy has taken a hit as well." As Tony and Mike Beets were led out of court in handcuffs by the police, the elder Beets finally raised his voice. Reporters, ex-co-workers, and fans filled the gallery as he peered out. Reminiscent of his TV appearances, but lacking in any showmanship, he uttered the words, "The Viking has fallen," before being escorted through the door that would cut him off from the mining empire he had nurtured for decades. The conviction forces Gold Rush fans to rethink their long-time viewing habits. The mining triumphs of the Beets family appear ominous and terrifying now. Utilizing show clips and trial evidence, environmental groups have begun developing educational tools emphasizing the importance of mining regulations. Additionally, this case raises serious concerns regarding the responsibility of reality TV producers to ensure that the events they document and profit from adhere to ethical and legal standards. A number of network executives from various channels have requested industry-wide discussions to establish more stringent regulations to ensure that feature extraction shows adhere to legal requirements. Tony Beets' other children, Kevin and Monica, who made frequent appearances on the show while working for the family business, were not charged in the case because evidence demonstrated that they had no role in making decisions regarding the illegal action. They issued a joint statement expressing shock at the seriousness of the violations and requesting privacy as they navigate their personal and professional lives. Despite the absence of two key figures, the Beets conviction is continuing to impact the company as the Yukon mining community prepares for the upcoming season. All mining operations will be subject to more stringent inspections according to the local government. Even when the cameras aren't rolling, Discovery Channel's additional compliance officers will be present at filming sites. But the historic life sentences handed down to Tony and Mike Beets show how grave environmental crimes are and how risky it is to believe that wrongdoers might be shielded from punishment because of their fame.